The spiritual impact of Malcolm X on the world. Yeah, let's go. You're listening to King Cam Ujumbe podcast, Ujumbe means message, and we're going to talk about Malcolm X's spiritual impact. Okay, we had a request by the fam. It says, "Salam, my dear brother. I was hoping that you would do a deeper analysis of Imam Malcolm. That's totally different when he says Imam Malcolm, right? He is arguably the most influential and the most powerful African American in our history. In order to tackle a man of this stature, his case has to be brought out in depth. He was a powerful Muslim. This cannot be understated. And his hidden history with the Afro Arabs is just as fascinating. Shout out to Baba Yahya Sabaka for making this request. We're going to get into it. We're going to talk about the spiritual impact of Malcolm X. What was his spiritual impact? What was the spiritual impact, right? So, that being said, let's get into it. His spiritual journey was one of the most profound aspects of his life legacy, his transformation from a troubled youth through his involvement with the Nation of Islam, and ultimately to the Orthodox Sunni Muslim, that is a Sunni faith, that is a group, had a great impact on him and the world. His spiritual evolution not only altered his personal ideology, but also served as a beacon for millions seeking justice, empowerment, and religious enlightenment. So, that being said, we're going to talk about his spiritual awakening. Number two, his Sudanese encounter. And last one, his charting of the OAAU. And of course, we'll answer a few questions, right? So, let's get to his spiritual awakening. So, he, in his life, um, early in his early life, it was defined by struggle and hardship. And we have to understand that this was typical to a lot of African Americans during this period. This is after slavery, after the Reconstruction period. Now we're into the full blown Jim Crow era segregation. But in this case, they were just like a lot of black people in the United States. They were struggling. So, as Malcolm Little, he experienced racial oppression firsthand. They weren't in segregated South, say in Atlanta or other places where it was just black people. They were in Nebraska, out in the middle of nowhere, getting the full brunt of whoever was coming after them. And so his father, Earl Little, was a supporter of Marcus Garvey, Marcus Garvey's Pan-Africanist movement, and his mother, Louise Little, instilled in him a sense of pride in his black heritage. I'm gonna tell you this: it starts at home. Okay, my love for my history started with my family history. So we, good or bad, whatever we learn from our family, from our parents, it does have a great impact on us. And so Malcolm X's father and mother greatly impacted him. Okay, and so they really planted the seeds for this great and mighty oak tree to thrive and grow. And they got this information from none other than Marcus Musai Garvey. He, this was the 1920s into the 30s. Marcus Garvey greatly influenced politically. He influenced a lot of black people. This man came from Jamaica and he really believed and he preached Africa for Africans at home and abroad. And so he believed that if you are black anywhere around the world, you are African. And so check out this book, um, The Negro with the Hat with the hat, the rise and fall of Marcus Garvey. It talks about it. Marcus Garvey didn't really get into he didn't get into religion per se or theology. He really dealt with the political side of Pan-Africanism. Okay, what we should do. Okay, how our actions should be. So this was tremendous. So this changed the way black people saw themselves and how they saw other people. Okay. Now, let's continue. However, the murder of his father, the institutionalization of his mother, and his descent into crime and imprisonment set him on a destructive path. But we got to be honest, okay? How many of us would have did something otherwise? Okay, we nowadays we kind of give our young people, our children, a hard time, not knowing they have a story. They some of them come with baggage. They come with these issues. Okay, and so and according to his biography, Malcolm was a hustler, Detroit Red, and he was caught. Okay, if we were honest, we've all been these things. And one, if we're being honest, uh, we have been we have been these things. We have been the hustler. We have been the Detroit Reds to crash out, and we have been caught. Okay, and so, but he even was honest to say, "Hey, I." In one of his speeches, I forgot which one, he said, I was in prison, and the people was laughing or looking funny at him, and he turned around, he said, "Some of y'all are still in prison." he was quick about it, but that's the truth. Some of us are still mentally in prison. We're in prison here. Okay, even though we're walking around free, but our minds are still shackled, right? And so that was Malcolm. And so it was in prison that he encountered the teachings of the Nation of Islam. Okay. And and this he got this information through his brother, Reginald. This was a pivotal moment in his spiritual journey as he abandoned his previous ways and embraced the disciplined teachings of Elijah Muhammad. The disciplined teachings of Elijah Muhammad. The disciplined teachings of Elijah Muhammad. Um, Love it or lump it, Elijah Muhammad was that guy. Okay, so we had Marcus Garvey. Think about the spiritual journey of Black America. Think about it. We had um Marcus Garvey, now we have Elijah. So the thing is, love it or lump it, you may agree, you may disagree, or whatever, but Elijah Muhammad really shaped the minds of a lot of Black men and women, and they became positive role models and great citizens. Okay, you you can say what you will, you may thumbs down this, but we can't deny this person of that, right? So his before I get to that question, his tenure in the Nation of Islam was characterized by his unwavering belief in Black self-sufficiency. But I got a question dealing with the spiritual development and growth of Black America. Who's who else greatly impacted Black America during the Civil Rights Movement more than these two men here? I'll wait. Okay. Who else? Okay. We can of course we can go into the 70s and 80s, but during the civil rights era, from 1955 all the way up until like 1970, these two guys were Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. And they had the same goal, which is freedom, justice, and equality, but their approach was different. Okay. But we need them. I think we need them both. We need that balance. We can't be, excuse me, we can't be too far to the left or the right. We need that balance. And the thing is, I remember, I think it was Stokely Carmichael, or they call him Kwame Ture, when he said you killed Malcolm for his beliefs, and you then you turn around and killed a peaceful man, Martin Luther King. What do you think we're going to do now? Okay, so these guys, these great men, balanced it out, balanced the scales. Okay, we need that balance. Okay, so what do you think? Let me know. All right, so Malcolm X tenure in the Nation of Islam was characterized by his fiery rhetoric and unwavering belief in Black self-sufficiency. Another phrase they would say back in the day, I used to grow up in the 90s, they would say, do for self. Okay, that means self-reliance, self-determination. If you're willing to go and do well, you need to go and get it. You can't rely on other people to do it for you. I have um I have a stickler about students coming to class with no supplies. That lets me know you didn't come to learn. And then another thing is, don't be the one knowing you need these things. but you relying on somebody else to have it for you. That's not the way. Okay. Or they say, well, they got a pen for me. They got a pencil. Don't be that person. Don't be the person that goes to the event and you expect people to pay your way in or to vouch for you. Do for yourself. Do for self. Okay, he became the movement's most articulate and influential spokesperson, drawing thousands to his fold. Okay, and his spiritual leadership within the Nation of Islam gave African Americans a renewed sense of identity and purpose. You can't deny that man of that. You can't. You can't. Okay, when people think of Malcolm, they think of dignity. They think of pride. Okay, so through his speeches, he emphasized self-discipline, economic independence, and rejection of white supremacy. Okay, economic independence, save some money sometime, right? Don't spend it all at one time. And um, it was tremendous. And so the impact of his words were immense. Black men and women who had been conditioned to view themselves as inferior, began to see themselves as divinely chosen and worthy of respect. Think about that. This was during a time where the black people were worse than the second. They was treated as second class citizens. They were not. They were no good. They were seen as lazy. They were seen as shiftless, and all these things. Okay. And if you spend most of your time hearing negative things, over time you will think that you are negative. You think that you're inferior. Okay. That's I think sometimes we hear if you hear a lot of negative things all the time, you start to believe that. I think the Bible says, so a man thinketh, so is he. Right? So, but then Malcolm and many others start to counteract that with positive things, with positive influence. Get up, dress up, be on time. Okay. That's why you saw them everywhere with coat and tie, clean shaven, ready to roll. Okay. Because you dress the part, you start thinking the part, right? And yes, they had to tell you to don't do drugs, don't do these things, but they had to counteract that with something positive. You got to fill that void with something else. And sometimes if you don't have something positive, it's always going to be something negative that's going to flow in. So they they rearrange the minds and train the minds to say, hey, I am good enough. And believe it or not, you are good enough, fam. Okay. You're great enough. You can do this. You can make it. Okay. So for many years after slavery and then redlining and Jim Crow and all these things, people start to think one way, but here come Malcolm saying, no, you're better. Right. And so um that worthy of respect. You are a human being. You are a person. Okay. So get this. His spiritual journey did not stop with the nation. This is a when you read about his life, when you read the autobiography of Malcolm X, for example, it was a upward movement. It was always change. It was always an evolution, right? He go from the kid Malcolm Little to Detroit Red to Malcolm X and so on. And the thing is, he was struggling, he was striving for something better, but it wasn't the same. And so in our lives, when you're if you're having the same struggle in the same place, doing the same things, you're not changing, you're not evolving. But if you're struggling, but your environment, your situation is different, it's getting a little bit better, that's a good struggle and that's a good fight to have. So his spiritual journey did not stop with the nation. This search led him to perform the Hajj pilgrimage to Mecca in 1964. Uh, this was a this was a turning point that Malcolm broadened his spiritual horizon. In Mecca, Malcolm X witnessed the unity of people, white, black, Arab, and Asian, who worship as one under one under the banner of Islam. So this revelation shattered his previous notions, right, of the race-based religious ideology that transformed him into a global humanitarian. Malcolm X's spiritual transformation had far-reaching consequences. So Upon returning to the United States, because I all these things was happening, all his travels happened basically the last year of his life. All these things he's done, this last level of spiritual awakening happened the last year of his life. And so he preached a new message of unity and human brotherhood, significantly different from his earlier stance on racial separation. You, but we can't fault him on that. We can't fault Malcolm for thinking that way. You got to remember where he lived. He lived in fully realized, integrated, for lack of a better words, Nebraska, right? Where him and his family was out in the open, and white people were abusing them. Versus Martin Luther King, he lived what was it? He lived in segregated Atlanta, and the only time he really encountered racism is when he left, when he went up north. Check this book out. Martin and Malcolm in America, A Dream or a Nightmare by James Cone. It's really good. It's really good. Check it out. Okay. But this caused him to see things differently when he went outside of Detroit, when he left New York, when he left those places. And like I tell people all the time, the world is bigger than Dallas. The world is bigger than the United States. Go out and see, right? So his conversion to Sunni Islam made him more globally connected, allowing him to forge relationships with international leaders, revolutionaries, and scholars who recognize him as a legitimate spiritual and political leader. Because at one time he was only seen as a civil rights activist. Now, when he went global, he's now a humanitarian. He's seen as a spiritual and political leader. This evolution of thought did not diminish his commitment to the struggle for Black liberation. So he was, even though he was out there fellowshipping with the brothers and sisters abroad across the Atlantic, he did not forget about Black America. Okay. So, but what it did though, it expanded his vision to include oppressed people worldwide. So he realized that, okay, racism is not just a US thing. This is a global problem. This is a world problem that we have to solve. Okay, his ability to intertwine spiritually and political activism continued to inspire individuals across racial and religious national lines. Check this out. This is a letter that he wrote, a six-page letter he wrote while he was in Mecca. This is pretty cool. I'm gonna put um the 6 pages. I'm not gonna read all 6 pages. I don't have time. But this is a six-page letter. This first page talking about his experience in Mecca, and I'm gonna read it. It says, "I've just completed my pilgrimage or Hajj here to the holy city of Mecca, the holiest city on earth, which is absolutely forbidden for non-Muslims to even rest their eyes on." This is what he's saying. This pilgrimage is the most important event in the life of all Muslims, and these are over. There are over 226,000 who are here right now from the outside of Arabia. From Turkey came the largest contingent, around 50,000 in over 600 buses. 600 buses, y'all. This refutes the Western propaganda that Turkey is turning away from Islam. He goes on to say, "I know of only two others who have actually made yeah, who have made the actual Hajj to Mecca from America, and both of them are West Indians who were also converted to Islam. Mr. Elijah Muhammad, two of his brothers, and a couple of his followers visited Mecca outside of Hajj season on, and their visit is known as the Umrah or Lesser Pilgrimage." Okay, I'm going to put the link in the description so you can read the rest of it. But at the end of that letter, he gave the name El Hajj Malik Al Shabazz. Now we see that spiritual impact in himself, the spiritual awakening of Malcolm X when he's no longer Malcolm Little, he's no longer Malcolm X, he is El Hajj Malik Al Shabazz. That's what's up. Okay. Now, question. Brother Mo asked the question. He said, "Do you think people feared Malcolm?" I think so. I think the people feared him, and I think both black and white. Okay, but I also think that they didn't understand him. And what you don't understand, you don't fear. Okay, what do you think? Y'all comment below. Do you think people fear Malcolm? But here's my question. I'm gonna add to it. Do you think they feared him more once he left the nation? What do you think? Do you think they feared him more once he was let go? Okay, y'all let me know. Do you think he became more of a powerhouse at that point? Do you think they feared him more once he left the nation? All right, let's continue. Malcolm X's Sudanese encounter. So we have his spiritual awakening, now his Sudanese encounter. Man, that to me, that's the the crux of the whole matter, right? So remember, he visited Ghana, Egypt, Kenya, Tanzania, Sudan, and Nigeria. But his visit to Sudan, to my understanding, was the most impactful on his spiritual journey. Okay. Um, One of the most overlooked aspects of Malcolm X's spiritual and political evolution was his engagement with the Sudanese Muslims, with the Sudanese people. During his extensive travel across Africa, and the Middle East, he developed a profound respect for Sudanese scholars, religious figures, and political leaders who introduced him to a more nuanced understanding of Islam and Pan-African unity. So he visited Sudan in 1964. I think some people they say he went to Khartoum, that is a major city in Sudan. This was a critical period in his life when he was redefining his beliefs and political strategies. Sudanese Muslims played a crucial role in shaping his understanding of Islam by as uh, as a unifying force rather than a racially divisive ideology. See, while he was in the nation, uh, he he was presented one version of that, which exemplified or amplified black nationalism. Uh, but his interactions with the Sudanese exposed him to a more orthodox, a more global perspective of the faith. And so, one of the most significant aspects of of the teachings, Sudanese Islamic teachings, that influenced Malcolm was the concept of Tawheed, or the oneness of God and humanity. Sudanese scholars emphasize that true Islam transcended racial and ethnic divisions, reinforcing the spiritual revelation Malcolm X had experienced during his Hajj. Okay, this message further solidified his commitment to Sunni Islam and helped him reject the sectarianism of the nation. The Sudanese perspective on Islamic unity resonated deeply with Malcolm, reinforcing his belief that that Islam could serve as a foundation for liberation movements worldwide. Okay. Now, in addition to that, to the theology or the theological aspect of there's some kind, it was a practical thing to this, right? Uh, when the Sudanese introduced Malcolm to the deep-rooted traditions of governance, jurisprudence, social justice, and political struggle, he realized that Sudan had a rich history of anti-colonial resistance. I did not know. Uh, Now, this was against the British, but I didn't know that they fought the British during this time and Egypt too. I didn't know that. Y'all comment below. Let me know. Um, I knew that they had some issues with Britain. Okay, granted, but I did not know that the Sudanese were throwing hands and they was giving Egypt that work. I didn't know that. All right, so this was new to me. I told you, learn something new all the time. So Malcolm engaged in discussions with Sudanese revolutionaries who fought against imperialist forces, and he recognized the striking parallels. He realized that there was a similarity between their struggles and the struggles in African Americans in the United States. So their shared perspectives on political self-determination, economic independence, and resistance against oppression influenced his emerging global strategy for Black liberation. So he realized that this was a global thing. Okay. He realized that. He understood that. He saw that. And get this, this was his first encounter with the Sudanese people. This was his first encounter. Okay. According to some sources, Sudanese students used to debate with him while he was still in the nation in the 60s. Okay. Who were they? I don't know. Okay. Some of you guys are really knowledgeable. Y'all let me know. But I was told that while he was still in New York, some of these students that was on scholarship to study in the United States and lived in New York, they would listen, but they would respectfully, disagree. All right. Who are they? Okay. Now, he also interacted with prominent Sudanese leaders and religious scholars who exposed him to the Sufi traditions that are deeply embedded with Sudanese Islam. Sufi scholars emphasize spiritual purification, personal discipline, and the ethical obligations of leadership. Principles that Malcolm X internalized in his later speeches. Get this. I've been told, and I've heard it, on a lot of documentaries concerning Malcolm X, that he had a impeccable memory. He can listen to something and he would just repeat that. Okay, he had an amazing memory. Okay, my memory comes and goes, but this man, he had a mind. He had a mind, and so he internalized their 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 processes and their principles, and he would later on repeat them. Okay, and so he had an amazing memory, and so get this: his engagement with these Sudanese scholars provided him with a more profound sense of spiritual responsibility, shaping his final months as a leader who sought to unify Black and Muslim communities worldwide. Um, his encounters, his encounters with in Sudan was also strengthened his ties with other African leaders by you coming all the way out here, being the person that you are. He gained respect from the other leaders. Okay, and so they were advocating for a Pan African approach to liberation. Sudan being a bridge between the Arab and African worlds, provided Malcolm X with a unique perspective on the interconnected struggles of Black and Muslim people across the globe. He saw the potential for African and Arab solidarity against Western imperialism and oppression, which further solidified his belief as in transcontinental movement for justice. His engagement with Sudanese Muslims played a pivotal role in reshaping his final ideological stance, and so he moved away from racial exclusivity of the nation, and then he had a new idea, one that recognized the struggles of oppressed people across the world. This global perspective would define his last speeches in efforts to bring African American struggle before the United Nations. He said, forget all this. I can't appeal to the United States. I'm going to bring this to the United Nations. Okay. That was him. That was him. Okay. But who was his teacher? Okay. His teacher was Sheikh Ahmed Hassoun, a Sudanese Muslim scholar who taught in Mecca for 35 years. Okay, he was sent to Harlem to help once Malcolm left Mecca. The Sheikh went to Harlem to help Malcolm learn Sunni Islam. Okay, after Malcolm's assassination, he performed a ritual washing of his body. Now, for those who watch, who've seen um, the story of Malcolm X. He has, when he was laid to rest, they put him in his traditional. They put him in the Western clothes, coat, suit and tie. But then, before he was buried, he was in his traditional Islamic garment. Okay, this man here performed the ritual washing of his body in accordance to Islamic funeral rites. Okay. Sheikh Ahmed Hassoun. Okay. The research on him was done by James Dunlap. Shout out to him. But that's pretty interesting. And to my understanding that because he was being threatened, he left New York and went back to back home. But speaking of home, yeah, we're not done. We're not done with Nubia. Okay. And it's just an amazing thing to um to think about this. We of course the last few months we had a discussion dealing with Ethiopia and Kush, the Nile Valley civilizations, and so on. Um, and to find out that we're landing right back in Sudan, okay, in into Nubia. We're not done with this conversation. Okay, we gotta answer some more questions. We gotta get into it. Okay, and get this: about 100 years ago, Howard Carter discovered the grave of King Tut, right? And you see the pictures of these Nubian people next to him. I like to believe, okay, y'all can comment. I'm just wondering, are these Nubians are they just regular people, or are they really the ones that's really teaching him the information? What do you think? I I have my opinion. Okay, I think that these Nubians here was really teaching Howard Carter what the symbols were, what this mean, what that mean. Okay, but we're not done with Nubia. We're not done. Okay, this young man here, the Nubian youth Hussein Abdel Rasul, at this time he was 12 years old. He was a water carrier. He's a boy photographed wearing the necklace of King Tut around his neck. That is a wonderful and that's a beautiful necklace. So I just want to know now, do you think the Aswan and Nubians taught Howard Carter the knowledge of King Tut? What do you think? Y'all let me know. Okay, because we gotta continue to have this conversation about Nubia. And so um Empress T 1414 says, I'm curious to know the spiritual practice of the people of Kush. Me too. Okay, because um they believed in the hidden one. They believed in the oneness also. So I just want to know. Okay, do you think Malcolm X connected with the echoes of the spirit? I'm sorry, I should have split the spirit of Kush. By being there, do you think that he really got the echoes of their um of their spirit or their mentality in Kush? What do you think? Because he was there. Did he receive that that enthusiasm from the ancestors? What do you think? Okay. So I did a quiz, did it last week. It says based on the video, Malcolm X legacy around the world, which was not a place that Minister Malcolm X visited. Was it Sudan, Ghana, Egypt, Alaska? Everybody got it correct. He did not go to Alaska. Okay. So shout out to you guys for participating. Yeah, he didn't go to Alaska. All right. Now, in order to tackle a man of his stature, his case has to be brought out in depth. He was a powerful Muslim. This cannot be understated. And his hidden history with the Afro Arabs is just as fascinating. Baba Yahya. Yeah, Malcolm X and the Afro Arabs. Now, this is a pretty interesting concept because um, there's a lot of people that would try to divorce themselves from being African. There are some people along the 4,000-mile connection between Sudan and Ghana called the Bilal Sudan. They would be uh, really dark skinned, but they would say they're Arab. Okay, but Malcolm X he connected with the Afro Arabs because he went to Tanzania, he went to Sudan, he went to Somalia, he went to these places, and he met these people. Okay, so Malcolm X interaction with Afro Arabs remain one of the least explored aspects of his journey. I want to hear more about it though. Throughout his travels in Africa and the Middle East, he engaged deeply with Afro Arab communities, many of whom had long histories of resisting colonialism and promoting Islamic unity. Yeah, his time in Egypt, Sudan, and Yemen exposed him to a unique perspective on African and Arab identity, further solidifying his belief in global solidarity among oppressed people. Okay. And so Afro Arabs, particularly those in Sudan and Yemen, resonated with Malcolm's call for unity beyond racial lines, and his discussions with Afro Arab scholars and revolutionaries helped shape his final ideological stance, one that fused Pan Africanism with the universal Islamic struggle against oppression. Malcolm X's engagement. with this hidden history remains untapped. It's an untapped source of information and inspiration for those studying intersection of race, culture, and revolution today. And this picture is of a original indigenous Egyptian woman. Okay, as you can tell, she looks Nubian. She looks like she's from Sudan, but according to the picture, the photo, it says Egyptus. She is an Egyptian woman. Okay. Shout out to the family Aswan and Nubia, but the original Egyptian people look like her. Okay. But a lot of people like to argue otherwise. But there are some people in southern part of Egypt, northern part of Sudan, that are still culturally connected to the history and the heritage. Let's go. I got a question though. Why is everybody buying eggs all of a sudden? Y'all tell me, because do I need to get some eggs? Do I need some, because all of a sudden, eggs are like $13. Like, seriously, you know, and people don't understand. Last time it was tissue. Now it's eggs, but it's like people, I guess people don't understand supply and demand. When the demand goes up, the prices go up. Okay. When people keep buying eggs, they're gonna bring the price up. And that's crazy. Okay. Do I need to go get some cows and chickens and whatnot and have them in my backyard? Because now everybody's buying all these eggs. And I can't have breakfast. All right. I need to know. Now, Malcolm X is chartering the OAAU. One of Malcolm X's most significant, yes, yet underappreciated achievements was his role in advocating for African unity through the Organization of African Unity, OAU, the OAU. Established in 1963 by African heads of state, the OAU sought to promote continental unity in colonial rule and foster economic and political cooperation. Malcolm X recognized the importance. He recognized the importance of aligning the struggles of African Americans with those of newly independent African nations. He did not separate African Americans from the Africans of the world. Did you hear me? He did not separate his struggle as an African American from those of other African nations. Okay? For those who like to talk loud in the back. Okay. He believed in global African unity. You're very welcome. So, that being said, realizing the importance of it, Malcolm X announced the establishment of the OAAU, that is the Organization of Afro American Unity, at a public meeting in New York's Audubon Ballroom, June 28th, 1964. Uh, he had written the group's charter with John Henry Clark, Albert Cleage, which is a preacher, Albert Cleage, Jesse Gray, and Gloria Richardson, among a few others. Now, here is some of the resolutions um, from that. Okay, I'm gonna read that. This Malcolm X, along with John Henry Clark, wrote the following into the OAAU Basic Unity Program. Okay, you can't have an organization without a process, without a program. Number one, restoration. He says, in order to release ourselves from the oppression of our slavers, then it is absolutely necessary for the African or the Afro American to restore communication with Africa. Step one. Number two, reorientation. We can learn much about Africa by reading informative books and by listening to the experiences of those who have traveled there. Number three, education. Education is important, y'all. The Organization of Afro American Unity will devise an organization educational method and procedures which will liberate the minds of our children. We will encourage qualified Afro Americans to write and publish textbooks needed to liberate our minds, educating them, our children at home. That's a good one. That's a good one. Economic security. After the Emancipation Proclamation, it was realized that the Afro Americans constitute the largest homogeneous ethnic group with common origin and common group experience in the United States, and if allowed to exercise economic or political freedom, would, in short, in a short period of time, own this country. Mm. We must establish a technician bank. We must do this so that the newly independent nations of Africa can turn to us, who are their brothers, for the technicians they will need now and in the future. So, in other words, if African nations need a loan, the Africans in America with a bank can do that for them. They don't have to worry about people pulling the plug on financial aid or funding. All right. Self-defense. The last one, to in order to enslave people and keep them subjugated, their right to self-defense must be denied. We encourage Afro Americans to defend themselves against the wanton attacks of racist aggressors whose sole aim is to deny us the guarantee of the United Nations Charter of Human Rights and of the Constitution of the United States. So they believe that. Okay. So that was some of their resolution. That was their program. Okay. All right. So I got a question. Had he lived, what impact you think he would have now? What do you think the OAU and OAAU would be like? And let me know. Like and comment below. Okay. But what do you think? What do you think? Do you think the United States of Africa would have already been a reality? Hmm, let me know. So, of course, you know, um, we talked about Imam Malcolm. He's the most influential and the most powerful African American in our history. Okay. In order to tackle this, his case has to be brought out in depth, and this cannot be understated. And his hidden history with Afro Arabs is just as fascinating. Thank you, Yahya Sabaka, for doing that. I hope I was able to answer that and get and add on to the conversation. So, Malcolm X's spiritual and political journey was a transformative force that reshaped the consciousness of the oppressed people worldwide. His evolution from a street hustler to revolutionary thinker and a spiritual leader demonstrated the power of self-education, discipline, and faith. Through his encounters with the Sudanese, Afro-Arabs, and Pan-African leaders, he expanded his vision beyond Black nationalism, embracing a universal struggle for justice and human rights. His advocacy for unity among African nations and a broader Muslim world continues to inspire movements for social change today. Malcolm X's legacy remains a testament to the enduring power of faith, courage, and pursuit of truth. We talked about Malcolm X's spiritual impact. Okay. So if you want to know more about it, because I'm not a Malcolm X scholar, to say the least. But check this video out. Why Malcolm X was obsessed with Sudan by a historian. Really good. And check this out. This is by Rashad Abdul Rahman. Why Malcolm X, Haj Malik Shabazz still matters in 2025. Pretty good video. Okay. But here's an important question. Here's an important question. Yeah, chicken or fish? I need to know that. Okay. I need to know that. Chicken or fish? Don't be mad at me. Okay. Chicken or fish? Subscribe and let me know in the comments. Okay. All right. I'm just saying. Subscribe and let me know in the comments. All right. Now, here's some books. Autobiography of Malcolm X is told to Alex Haley, By Any Means Necessary. Uh, the Malcolm X on Afro-American History, and The Dead Are Arising, The Life of Malcolm X by Les Payne and Tamara Payne. Check them out. All right. So we talked about Malcolm X's spiritual awakening, the Sudanese encounter, the charting of the OAU, and we answered a few questions. All right. All right. We talked about Malcolm X's spiritual impact. All right. You listen to King Cam Ujumbe podcast and Ujumbe Me's message. I will talk to you later.